Admiral Park Do-hun stood at the window of the space station and looked at the stars. He was 63 years old, and he had spent 40 of those years serving humanity. His hair was gray now, and his face had many lines, but his eyes were still sharp and bright. He wore his white uniform with pride, and on his chest were many medals that told the story of his long service. The space station was called Concordance Prime. It was a neutral place, where all the species of the galaxy could meet and talk. Park had come here to negotiate peace with the Valith, the most powerful species in the galactic hegemony. Humans had been part of the hegemony for 300 years, but they were never treated as equals. The aliens saw humans as workers and soldiers, nothing more. Park wanted to change that. Captain Yoon Hana sat in her command chair aboard the stealth carrier Silent Dawn. The ship was hidden in the shadow of a nearby moon, watching and waiting. Hana was 35 years old, with short black hair and calm eyes that had seen many battles. She was Park's student and most trusted officer. She watched the live feed from the station on her screen. "Admiral Park is entering the council chamber now," said her communications officer. Hana nodded. She felt worried, but she did not show it. Something about this meeting felt wrong. The Valith had never wanted to talk before. Why now? On the station, Park walked into the great council chamber. It was a huge room with high ceilings and strange alien decorations. At the center was a round table, and around it sat the representatives of 20 different species. At the head of the table sat the Valith High Regent, a tall creature with pale blue skin and 4 arms. His name was Vorinth, and he ruled the hegemony with an iron grip. Ambassador Kang Ji-won walked beside Park. He was a thin man, with glasses and a nervous habit of adjusting his collar. He had been Earth's voice in the hegemony for 10 years, and he had learned to read alien faces. Right now, he did not like what he saw. "The regent looks too pleased," Kang whispered to Park. "Be careful, sir." Park smiled slightly. "I am always careful, old friend." They took their seats at the table. The regent stood and spread his 4 arms wide, in a gesture of welcome that looked false. "Admiral Park," Foran said. His voice was smooth like oil. "We are honored by your presence. Humanity has been a valued member of our hegemony, and we wish to discuss your future role in our great civilization." Park bowed his head politely. "Thank you, High Regent. Humanity is ready to take on greater responsibilities. We have proven ourselves in your wars. We have built your stations. We have served with loyalty. Now, we ask only for respect and equality." The chamber went silent. Several alien representatives shifted in their seats uncomfortably. No one spoke to the regent this way. Vorinth's eyes narrowed for just a moment. Then he smiled again. "Of course, equality. Let us discuss this further. But first, a toast to friendship between our peoples." Servants brought glasses of ceremonial wine. Everyone raised their glasses. Park raised his too. Aboard the Silent Dawn, Hana watched the screen with growing unease. "Zoom in on the regent's face," she ordered. The image grew larger. She saw something in the regent's eyes. It was the look of a predator about to strike. "Something is wrong," she said. "Get me a line to the admiral right now." In the council chamber, Park brought the glass to his lips. But before he could drink, he stopped. He had noticed something. One of the servants was not moving like the others. This one was too still, too focused, and his hand was reaching inside his robe. Park dropped his glass and shouted, "Everyone down!" But it was too late. The assassin pulled out a weapon and fired. The beam hit Park directly in the chest. The admiral fell backward, his body crashing against the floor. The room exploded into chaos. Aliens screamed and ran. Security forces rushed in. But no one helped Park. Kang crawled to his fallen friend and held his hand. "Admiral! Admiral! Stay with me!" Park looked up at him with fading eyes. Blood was spreading across his white uniform. He tried to speak, but only blood came from his mouth. He squeezed Kang's hand once, and then he was gone. The whole thing had been broadcast live to every human colony. Billions of people watched their greatest hero die. On ships and stations and planets across human space, people stood in shock. Then the shock turned to something else. Something darker. On the silent dawn, Hana watched the screen with a face made of stone. Her hands gripped the arms of her chair so hard that her knuckles went white. Around her, her crew was crying and shouting. She said nothing for a long moment. Then she spoke in a voice as cold as space itself. Lock down all communications. Set condition 1 throughout the ship. We are at war. We are at war. Her first officer stared at her. Captain, we have no orders. I am giving you orders, Hana said. The hegemony just murdered our admiral in cold blood. They did it in front of the whole galaxy. Do you think this was an accident? Do you think this was one rogue actor? They killed him because they fear us, and they will learn that they were right to be afraid. On the station, the hegemony released a statement within the hour. They called the assassination a tragic incident caused by a disturbed individual acting alone. They expressed deep regret and promised a full investigation. They said they hoped this would not damage the valued relationship between humans and the hegemony. Ambassador Kang stood before the Hegemony Council and demanded justice. He demanded the arrest of everyone involved. He demanded reparations. He demanded respect for human life. The regent looked down at him with cold eyes. Ambassador, we understand your grief, but you must understand your place. Humanity is a small part of a great civilization. Do not let emotion lead you to foolish actions. Accept our condolences and return to your duties. Kang stared at the regent for a long moment. Then he removed his diplomatic badge and threw it on the floor. You will regret this, he said. You will regret this for the rest of your very short lives. He walked out of the chamber and never looked back. On Earth, the news spread like fire. People gathered in the streets. They did not riot. They did not scream. They stood in silence and watched the footage of their admiral dying again and again. Children who had grown up hearing stories of Park's bravery now watched him murdered by alien hands. Old soldiers who had served under him wept without shame. The United Earth Parliament called an emergency session. Representatives from every human colony attended by hologram. The debate was short. There was only one question. What would humanity do? The vote was unanimous. Every single representative voted for war. President Baek Soon-hee stood before the assembly. She was a small woman with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen much suffering. She had lost her own son in a border skirmish with alien pirates 10 years ago. She knew what loss felt like, and she knew what had to be done. She looked into the cameras that would broadcast her words to every human alive. When she spoke, her voice was steady and sure. 300 years ago, we joined the galactic hegemony with hope in our hearts. We believed that we could find our place among the stars through hard work and good faith. We were wrong. They have never seen us as equals. They have used our labor, spent our blood, and taken our dignity. And now, they have taken our father. She paused and let the words sink in. Admiral Park Do-hoon was more than a soldier. He was our hope. He was our voice. He was the best of us. And they killed him like he was nothing. They killed him, and they expect us to bow our heads and return to our cages. Her eyes hardened. They have made a terrible mistake. They have forgotten what we are. We are not their servants. We are not their soldiers. We are humanity, and we do not forgive. We do not forget, and we do not lose. She raised her fist. Today, we declare war on the galactic hegemony. Not a war for territory, not a war for resources, a war for justice, a war for vengeance, a war that will not end until every creature that played a part in this crime has answered for it. She looked directly into the camera. They have taken our father. They will learn what it means to orphan the wolves. They will learn what it means to orphan the wolves. Across human space, the message was received, and humanity began to prepare for the last war it would ever need to fight. 1 week after Admiral Park's death, human space went dark. Every communication channel closed. Every border sealed. Every trade route stopped. Ships that tried to enter human territory were turned away without explanation. The galaxy watched and waited to see what the humans would do. The Valeth High Regent sat in his throne room and laughed. His advisors stood around him, and they laughed too. They thought humanity was having a tantrum. They thought the humans would cry and shout for a few weeks, and then they would come crawling back. Humans needed the hegemony for food, for technology, for protection. They could not survive alone. Everyone knew this. Let them sulk, Voranth said to his council. In a month, they will send ambassadors begging for forgiveness. And we will make them pay dearly for this insult. We will raise their taxes. We will reduce their representation. We will remind them of their place. His advisors nodded and agreed. Humans were weak. Humans were emotional. Humans were no threat to the mighty hegemony. They were very, very wrong. Deep inside human space, on a moon that appeared on no map, there was a facility called Prometheus Base. It was humanity's most closely guarded secret. For 200 years, the greatest human scientists had worked here on weapons and technology that the galaxy had never seen. The hegemony thought humans were primitive. They thought humans only knew how to follow orders and die in battle. They had no idea what humans could create when they put their minds to it. Dr. Im Yuri was the director of Project Prometheus. She was 50 years old, with long gray hair that she kept in a braid and hands that were always stained with chemicals. She had spent her whole life preparing for a day she hoped would never come. Now it had come, and she was ready. President Baek Sun-hee arrived at the base with her security team. I met her at the entrance and led her inside. The president had never seen this place before. Very few people had. What she saw made her stop and stare. The facility was enormous. It stretched for kilometers underground. Thousands of scientists and engineers worked at stations filled with equipment that looked like it came from the future. Massive construction bays held ships unlike anything in the hegemony fleet. Weapons that could crack planets sat in storage waiting to be used. How is this possible? Baek asked. How did we hide all this? I'm smiled slightly. We are very good at being underestimated, Madam President. The hegemony sees us building their stations and crewing their ships, and they think that is all we can do. They never wondered what we might be building for ourselves. She led the president to a display screen and began to explain. First, the dimensional fold drive. Our current ships use jump gates controlled by the hegemony. These new drives let us fold space itself. We can appear anywhere in the galaxy instantly, without warning. Their early detection systems will be useless. She showed the next item. Second, the neural combat network. Every human ship will be connected through an artificial intelligence system. They will fight as one mind. No delays, no miscommunication. They will move like a single organism with 1,000,000 hands. She showed another weapon. Third, the antimatter cascade bomb. One of these can destroy a fleet. 10 of them can sterilize a planet. Baek stared at the weapons with hard eyes. And the Sunfire Protocol? I have heard rumors. Im was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. Yes, the Sunfire Protocol. A weapon that can collapse a star and turn it into a supernova. We can destroy entire systems with it. It is our final option. Our ultimate answer. The president closed her eyes. She thought about what it would mean to use such weapons. Billions of lives. Entire civilizations. Was she prepared to give that order? Then she thought about Admiral Park dying on the floor of that council chamber. She thought about the regent's smug face. She thought about 300 years of humans being treated like animals. She opened her eyes. Prepare everything. We will use whatever we must. While the scientists prepared their weapons, General Cho Tai-soon prepared his soldiers. He was 60 years old, a massive man with scars on his face and arms from decades of combat. He had fought in the colonial wars, the border conflicts, and a dozen other battles that the hegemony had sent humans to die in. Now he would fight his own war. He sent a message to every human serving in the hegemony military. There were more than 50 million of them, scattered across the galaxy. They served as soldiers, pilots, guards, and crew on alien ships. They were considered the best fighters in the hegemony, but they were always commanded by aliens. They were always treated as tools. The message was simple. Come home. The war is starting. They came. From every corner of the galaxy, human soldiers abandoned their posts and made their way back to human space. They stole ships when they had to. They fought their way out when they had to. Some of them died on the journey. But millions of them made it home, and they brought with them knowledge of every hegemony base, every fleet position, every weakness. The hegemony was furious. They called it desertion and treason. They demanded that humanity return the soldiers and punish them. Humanity did not respond. In every human colony, the people prepared for war. Factories that made consumer goods switched to making weapons and armor. Schools became training centers where civilians learned to fight. Shipyards worked day and night building new vessels. Everyone had a role to play, from children packing supplies to grandparents monitoring communications. There was no panic. There was no fear. There was only cold, focused determination. The hegemony had united humanity in a way that nothing else ever had. Every human alive had seen Admiral Park die. Every human alive wanted justice. 2 weeks into the silence, the hegemony sent a diplomatic ship to human space. They wanted to ease tensions and find a peaceful solution. They carried a message from the High Regent offering to pay compensation for the Admiral's death and promising to punish the assassin's family. Admiral Yoon Hana, now promoted to command of the First Strike Fleet, received the envoy on her flagship. She was still only 35 years old, but her eyes looked much older now. She had not slept more than a few hours since Park's death. She wore his medal around her neck. The Valeth diplomat was nervous. He had never seen a human look at him like this before. Humans were always polite, always respectful, always eager to please. This human looked at him like he was already dead. Admiral Yoon, the diplomat said, the High Regent sends his personal condolences. He wishes... Stop, Hana said. The diplomat stopped. Hana reached into her pocket and pulled out Admiral Park's medal. It was still stained with his blood. She placed it in the diplomat's hands. Take this back to your regent, she said. Tell him this is a gift from humanity. Tell him to keep it close. Tell him to look at it every night before he sleeps. The diplomat looked at the medal with confusion. I do not understand. What message does this send? Hana smiled, but there was no warmth in it. The message is this. Remember this kindness when you beg for mercy. The diplomat left quickly. He reported to the regent that the humans had refused all negotiation. He said they seemed calm and organized, not angry and chaotic as expected. He said he had never been so frightened in his life. The regent dismissed his concerns. Humans were bluffing. They had no real power. They would fall in line soon enough. 3 days later, hegemony sensors detected massive energy signatures across human space. Thousands of them. The analysts studied the readings and went pale with fear. High Regent, the chief analyst reported, the humans are not preparing to defend themselves. They have massed their entire fleet at strategic points along our border. They are preparing to attack. The regent frowned. Attack? Attack what? The analyst swallowed hard. Everything, High Regent. They are preparing to attack everything at once. For the first time, the regent felt a small seed of doubt. But he pushed it aside. Humans were just humans. How much damage could they really do? He was about to find out. Aboard the flagship Vengeful Dawn, Admiral Yoon Hana addressed her fleet. 2,000 ships, all equipped with new weapons and drives, all crewed by humans who had lost their beloved commander. They had trained for this moment their entire lives without knowing it. In 12 hours, we begin Operation Thunderfall, Hana said. We will strike 200 hegemony systems simultaneously. We will hit their shipyards, their supply bases, their communication networks. We will blind them and cripple them before they even understand what is happening. She paused. Some of us will not come back. This is the price of justice. But know this. Every one of us who falls will be remembered forever, and every enemy who dies will be another step toward honoring Admiral Park's memory. She touched the metal at her neck. They think we are weak because we work with our hands and feel with our hearts. They are about to learn that our hands can crush and our hearts can burn. Let them learn. Let them all learn. She gave the order. All ships, engage full drives. Let the war begin. 2,000 ships vanished from human space. And across the galaxy, 200 hegemony systems were about to experience the wrath of humanity, unleashed. The first warning came too late. Across 200 hegemony systems, alarms began to scream at the same moment. But by the time the operators understood what was happening, human ships were already there, already firing, already killing. On Valith Prime, the homeworld of the hegemony's ruling species, Admiral Yoon Hana's first strike fleet appeared out of folded space like ghosts. One moment, there was nothing. The next moment, there were 500 human warships arranged in perfect attack formation. The Valith defense fleet scrambled to respond, but they were too slow. They had expected days or weeks of warning before any attack. They got seconds. All batteries, open fire, Hana ordered. Her voice was calm and steady, like she was giving instructions for a simple training exercise. Priority targets are orbital defense platforms and command ships. Do not let them organize. The Vengeful Dawn's main guns blazed to life. Streams of plasma and antimatter tore through the Valith formation. The neural combat network linked every human ship together, letting them coordinate their fire with perfect precision. When one ship saw an opening, every ship saw it. When one ship adjusted its aim, every ship adjusted with it. They fought like a single creature, with 500 bodies. The Valith tried to fight back. They were not weak. Their ships were large and powerful, and their crews were well trained. But they were fighting the way they had always fought, with each captain making his own decisions, with each ship acting alone. Against the human network, they were like blind men fighting a snake. In the first 10 minutes, the Valith lost 40 ships. The humans lost 3. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on 100 other worlds. Hegemony shipyards exploded as human strike teams planted bombs in their reactors. Supply stations burned as human missiles found their targets with impossible accuracy. Communication satellites went dark as human hackers tore through their systems. The hegemony's mighty infrastructure, built over thousands of years, began to crumble. Lieutenant No Unji flew her fighter through the chaos above Corvith Station, the hegemony's largest military shipyard. She was 28 years old, with quick hands and quicker eyes. She had been flying since she was 16, and there was no one better in a cockpit. Her squadron, the Black Arrows, had been given the most dangerous mission. Get inside the station's shields and destroy its main reactor. Arrow lead to all arrows, she said into her communicator. Stay tight and follow my path. We're going in fast and we're not slowing down. The station's defenses filled the space around them with fire. Energy beams and missiles crisscrossed in every direction. A normal attack would be suicide. But Unji was not making a normal attack. She pushed her fighter to maximum speed and dove straight toward the station. Her squadron followed, in a perfect line behind her. The station's targeting systems tried to track them, but they were moving too fast, changing direction too quickly. Unji felt the ship shaking around her, as near misses exploded on every side. She did not slow down. "Arrow 3 is hit," someone shouted over the comm. "Keep going," Unji ordered. "We stop, we die." She found the gap in the shields, a tiny opening where 2 generators overlapped imperfectly. She had studied the station's blueprints for weeks, looking for this weakness. She aimed for it and punched through. Inside the shields, the station's surface rushed up at her. She pulled up hard, feeling the G-forces crush her into her seat. Her vision went gray at the edges, but she held on. She saw the reactor exhaust port ahead, a circular opening barely wide enough for her fighter. She fired her missiles and pulled away at the last moment. Behind her, the missiles flew into the port and detonated inside the reactor core. The explosion was enormous. The station broke apart from the inside, its hull cracking open like an egg. Fire and debris blasted outward in all directions. Unji's fighter tumbled through the shockwave, and she fought to regain control. When she finally steadied the ship, she looked back at the destruction. Corveth Station was gone. 40% of the hegemony's reserve fleet had been destroyed with it. "Arrow lead to command," she reported. "Target eliminated." On the vengeful dawn, Hana received the report and allowed herself a small moment of satisfaction. The first strike was succeeding beyond all expectations. But she knew the real battle was just beginning. The Valeth had called for reinforcements from across the hegemony. Ships from a dozen species were jumping into the system to defend their capital. The combined fleet would outnumber the humans 3-1. Hana did not care. Numbers meant nothing when your enemy could not think as fast as you. "New contacts emerging," her sensor officer reported. "Counting over 1,000 ships. They're forming a defensive sphere around the planet." Hana studied the display. The enemy formation was strong and well-positioned. A direct assault would be costly. But she did not need to assault it directly. "Signal Colonel Shin," she said. "Tell him he is clear to begin his mission." While the fleets battled in space, Colonel Shin Minho led his Special Forces team through the streets of the Valeth capital city. They had landed in a cargo shuttle disguised as a refugee ship, and now they moved through the chaos toward their target, the Hegemony Council chambers. Shin was 45 years old, a quiet man with gray at his temples and hands that had killed more enemies than he could count. He had spent 20 years running black operations for the Hegemony, doing the dirty work that the aliens did not want to do themselves. Now he was using everything they had taught him against them. His team was small, only 20 soldiers, but they were the best humanity had. They moved like shadows through the burning city, avoiding patrols and slipping past checkpoints. The Valeth were so focused on the battle above that they had forgotten to protect what was below. The council chambers were guarded by the regent's personal troops, the finest warriors the Valeth had. Shin's team killed them in 4 minutes. They used silenced weapons, blades, and their bare hands. When it was over, 20 Valeth guards lay dead without ever raising an alarm. Shin led his team inside. They found the regent in his private chambers, trying to contact his fleet commanders. He looked up when the door opened, and his 4 arms reached for weapons that were no longer there. "High Regent Vorenth," Shin said, "you are under arrest for the murder of Admiral Park Do-hun. You will be taken to Earth to face trial. If you resist, you will be killed. Choose now." The regent's face twisted with rage and disbelief. "You cannot do this. I am the ruler of the Galactic Hegemony. You are a prisoner," Shin said. "That is all you are now." They took the regent alive. But the war was not over. As Hana pressed her attack on the Valeth fleet, she received a message from Earth. It was marked with the highest priority code, the one that meant catastrophe. She opened it and read the words. Then she read them again, hoping she had made a mistake. She had not. The Valeth had deployed their ancient weapon, the World Ender. It was a device so powerful that it had not been used in 1,000 years. They had fired it at the human colony of New Busan. New Busan was gone. The entire planet had been burned to ash. 8 million humans had died in seconds. Men, women, and children all turned to dust because the Valith were losing a battle. Hana stood at her command station and stared at the message. Around her, her officers were crying and shouting. Some were screaming for revenge. Hana felt something inside her change. The last piece of softness, the last trace of mercy, burned away and left only cold determination. She opened a channel to all human forces, everywhere in the galaxy. "This is Admiral Yoon Hana," she said. Her voice was flat and hard like stone. "The Valith have destroyed New Busan. 8 million of our brothers and sisters are dead. They did this because they are losing. They did this because they are afraid. They did this because they think they can break us." She paused. "They are wrong. They have only shown us what they truly are. They are not warriors. They are murderers of children. They are burners of worlds. They do not deserve mercy. They do not deserve prisoners. They do not deserve to exist." She gave the order that would change the galaxy forever. All forces, new rules of engagement. No more prisoners. No more negotiations. No more mercy. We end this species. We end this hegemony. We end this now. Across human space, the order was received. And humanity's anger, already burning hot, became a fire that would consume everything in its path. The first strike had been a message. What came next would be a reckoning. 3 months into the war, and the galaxy had learned a new word for fear. That word was humanity. The hegemony had expected a quick conflict. They had expected humans to make a show of force and then retreat to negotiate. They had expected anger but not annihilation. They had been wrong about everything. Human fleets moved through hegemony space like fire through dry grass. They struck without warning and left nothing behind. Shipyards, military bases, supply depots, communication networks, all of it burned. The Valith tried to mount a defense, but they could not predict where the humans would attack next. The fold drives let human ships appear anywhere, strike hard, and vanish before reinforcements could arrive. Admiral Yoon Hana stood on the bridge of the Vengeful Dawn and watched another Valith system fall. Her officers had started calling her the Ghost Admiral because she seemed to be everywhere at once. The Valith told stories about her to frighten their children. They said she could not be killed, that she was a spirit of vengeance that would not rest until every Valith was dead. Hana did not care what they called her. She only cared about winning. "Report," she said to her operations officer. "We have taken control of the Koreth system. All enemy ships destroyed or captured. Ground forces are securing the orbital stations now." Hana nodded. "What about civilian casualties?" "Minimal. We warned them before we attacked. Most evacuated." This was important to Hana. She was fighting a war of justice, not a war of genocide. The Valith leadership had killed Admiral Park. The Valith military had destroyed New Busan. But the Valith civilians had done nothing. She would not become the monster she was fighting. The same could not be said for her enemies. The destruction of New Busan had changed everything. 8 million dead, not soldiers, not warriors, but families, and children, and ordinary people. The Valith had thought this would break humanity's will. Instead, it had united them in rage. Now every human fought, not just for justice, but for vengeance. The war had become personal. General Cho Tae-soon led the ground campaign. His forces had conquered dozens of hegemony worlds, but he did not rule them as a tyrant. Instead, he liberated them. Many species in the hegemony had been conquered and enslaved by the Valith centuries ago. They had no love for their rulers. When Cho's soldiers arrived, many of them welcomed the humans as saviors. On the planet Velnar, Cho met with the leaders of the Rithani people. They were small beings with green skin and large eyes, and they had served the Valith as slaves for 500 years. Their leader, An old female named Korath bowed before the general. "We have heard of the human war," she said. "We have heard that you fight against our masters. Is this true?" Cho nodded. "It is true. The Valeth killed one of our leaders. We have come to make them answer for it. Every way." Korath looked up at him with hope in her eyes. "Will you free us?" Cho knelt down so he could look at her face to face. "We will free everyone the Valeth have enslaved. When this war is over, there will be no more masters and no more slaves. All species will be equal. This is what we fight for." Korath began to cry. She had never dared to dream of such a thing. That night, 10,000 Rithani volunteered to join the human army. They were not strong fighters, but they knew the Valeth systems and secrets. Their information helped Cho win 3 more planets that month. While Cho liberated worlds, diplomat O Sora worked in the shadows. She was a small woman with a soft voice and a sharp mind, and her job was to turn the hegemony against itself. She traveled to secret meetings with representatives of species that were unhappy under Valeth rule. She offered them a choice: join humanity and be free, or stay with the Valeth and share their fate. Many chose to join. The Korvani, a species of traders and merchants, switched sides after Sora promised them fair trade agreements. The Velthan, a warrior species that had been forced to fight in Valeth wars for centuries, defected with their entire fleet. The Narathi, a species of scientists, offered to share their technology in exchange for independence. One by one, the hegemony crumbled from within. Species that had obeyed the Valeth out of fear now saw that the Valeth could be beaten. And if they could be beaten, why continue to serve them? The High Regent was brought to Earth in chains. His trial was broadcast across the galaxy. Billions watched as evidence was presented of his crimes, not just the assassination of Admiral Park, but centuries of oppression, slavery, and murder. The Regent showed no remorse. He sat in his chair and glared at his accusers with hatred in his eyes. "You think you have won?" he said when he was allowed to speak. "You have won nothing. The Valeth have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. We will rule it for 10,000 more. You are insects. You are—" The judge silenced him. The verdict was guilty. The sentence was death. President Bake herself gave the order for execution. The Regent was vaporized by a single shot from a plasma rifle. His ashes were scattered in space. There was no memorial. There was no grave. He simply ceased to exist. The Valeth response was immediate and desperate. They activated their final option: the Genesis collapse. It was a device even more terrible than the World Ender. It could create a chain reaction that would tear apart a planet's core and destroy everything on its surface. The target was Earth itself. Human intelligence discovered the plan with only days to spare. A spy inside the Valeth military sent a message with the location of the device. It was on the Valeth throne world, buried deep beneath the capital city. It would fire in 1 week. President Bake called an emergency meeting of her war council. Hana was there by hologram from her flagship. Cho attended from his command center. The faces around the table were grim. "If that device fires, Earth dies," the president said. 4 billion people. Our homeworld. Everything we are. "Then we destroy the device," Hana said. "We attack the throne world, and we take it out." Cho shook his head. "The throne world is the most heavily defended planet in the galaxy. The Valeth have pulled back their remaining fleets to protect it. We would be attacking into the teeth of their defense." "Then we attack into their teeth," Hana said. The president looked at her admiral. She saw a woman who had aged 10 years in 3 months, whose eyes were tired but determined, who had given everything for this war, and was ready to give more. "Can you win?" Bake asked. Hana was silent for a moment. Then she spoke. "I can reach the planet. I can land troops. But it will cost us. We will lose ships. We will lose soldiers. We may lose everything. But can you win? Hana touched the medal at her neck. Park's medal, still stained with his blood. She had carried it through every battle. She would carry it through this one. Yes, she said. I can win. I will win. The president nodded. Then go. Take your fleet to their throne world. End the Valeth Empire tonight. Hana cut the transmission and turned to her crew. They were watching her, waiting for orders. They knew what was coming. They knew many of them would not survive. But none of them looked afraid. You heard the president, Hana said. We go to the throne world. We destroy the Genesis collapse device. We end this war. She looked at each of them in turn. I will not lie to you. This will be the hardest battle we have ever fought. The Valeth are desperate, and desperate enemies are dangerous. Some of us will fall, but those who fall will be remembered forever. And those who survive will tell their children that they were there when humanity proved to the galaxy that we will never be conquered, we will never surrender, and we will never give up. She raised her fist. For Admiral Park. For New Busan. For Earth. For humanity. Her crew raised their fists and echoed the words. For humanity. The vengeful dawn and its fleet engaged their fold drives and vanished into the darkness between stars. Their destination was the heart of the enemy empire. Their mission was the survival of their species. The last battle was about to begin. The Valeth throne world hung in space like a dark jewel, surrounded by the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. 3,000 warships formed a sphere of steel and fire around the planet. Orbital defense platforms bristled with weapons. The surface was covered with ground-to-space missiles and energy cannons. The Valeth had gathered everything they had left for this final defense. They knew that if the humans broke through, it was over. Their empire, their species, their future, all of it would end. Admiral Yunhana's fleet emerged from fold space and saw the enemy waiting for them. Her officers went quiet as they counted the ships on their screens. The humans were outnumbered 2-1. The defenses were stronger than anything they had faced before. This was the battle that would decide everything. Admiral, her tactical officer said, enemy fleet is moving to engage. They're spreading into an envelopment pattern. They want to surround us. Hana studied the display. The Valeth strategy was sound. If they could encircle the human fleet, they could crush it from all sides. She could not let that happen. Signal all ships, she said. We're not going to dance with them. We're going straight through the middle. Full speed attack. Concentrate all fire on their center. We punch a hole, and we don't stop until we reach the planet. Her first officer, Commander Jang Hyuk, stepped closer to her. He was her oldest friend, a man she had known since the academy. They had served together for 15 years. He knew what she was thinking. That will put the lead ships in the heaviest fire, he said quietly. The casualties will be severe. I know, Hana said. That's why I'm putting the vengeful Dawn at the front. Jang nodded slowly. He had expected nothing less. Then, I request permission to take the assault carrier group ahead of you. We'll draw their fire and open a path. Hana looked at him. She saw what he was offering. He was giving his life to save hers and complete the mission. She wanted to refuse. She wanted to order him to stay with the main fleet, but she knew he was right. Someone had to break through first, and he was the best commander she had. Permission granted, she said. Her voice was steady, but her heart was breaking. Good luck, Hyuk, he smiled. I'll see you on the other side, Hana. One way or another. He saluted and left the bridge. Minutes later, his carrier group surged ahead of the fleet, leading the charge into the enemy formation. The battle began. Jang's ships crashed into the Valeth center like a hammer. They fired everything they had, missiles and plasma and antimatter, tearing into the enemy line. The Valeth focused their fire on them, just as Jang had planned. His ships began to die 1, then 2, then 5, then 10. But they kept fighting. They kept pushing forward. On the vengeful dawn, Hana watched her friends' ships explode one by one. Each death was a knife in her heart. But she could not stop. She could not hesitate. Too much depended on this. The gap is opening, her tactical officer reported. Commander Zhang's group has broken through the first line. All ships, follow them in, Hana ordered. Do not slow down. Do not stop firing. The human fleet poured through the hole that Zhang had created. Valeth ships tried to close the gap. But the humans were too fast. Too coordinated. The neural combat network let them react instantly to every threat, dodging and weaving through the enemy fire while delivering devastating attacks. Zhang's carrier was hit by 6 missiles at once. The ship broke apart in a bloom of fire and debris. Hana saw it happen on her screen. She saw his name disappear from the command roster. She said nothing. Staff in 7, she did nothing. She kept fighting. The human fleet reached the planet's orbital defenses. The platforms were huge, each one as big as a city, armed with weapons that could crack moons. Hana split her fleet into attack groups and sent them against the platforms. The fighting was brutal. Ships died on both sides. But the humans were faster and smarter. And one by one, the platforms fell. Ground forces are ready to launch, her operations officer reported. Awaiting your order. Launch all landing craft, Hana said. Get our soldiers on the ground. The device is underground, beneath the capital city. They need to find it and shut it down. Thousands of landing craft dropped from the human ships and burned down through the atmosphere. The Valeth ground defenses opened fire, and many of the craft were destroyed before they touched down, but many more made it through. Human soldiers poured out onto the alien soil and began to fight their way toward the capital. The battle on the ground was even more brutal than the battle in space. The Valeth fought with the desperation of a species facing extinction. Every street was a battlefield. Every building was a fortress. The humans advanced block by block, room by room, paying for every meter with blood. Admiral Hana could not wait on her ship while her soldiers died. She took a landing craft down to the surface and joined the assault herself. She had trained as a ground soldier before she became a pilot, and she had not forgotten how to fight. She led a strike team through the burning streets toward the Valeth Palace, where intelligence said the Genesis Collapse Control Center was located. They fought through the outer defenses and into the palace itself. The building was ancient and beautiful, filled with art and treasures from 10,000 years of Valeth civilization. Hana did not care. She was not here for treasure. She was here to stop a weapon that would kill her world. Her team pushed deeper into the palace. They met Valeth soldiers and killed them. They found locked doors and blasted them open. They found traps and triggered them safely. Time was running out. The device would fire in less than an hour. They reached the throne room. The doors were sealed with heavy locks. Hana planted charges and blew them apart. She stepped through the smoke and into the room beyond. The Valeth regent was waiting for her. Not the old regent who had been executed on Earth. This was his successor. A younger Valeth with cold eyes and a calm face. He stood before the throne with his hands clasped behind his back, showing no fear. Admiral Yoon, he said. I wondered if I would meet you before the end. Hana aimed her rifle at his chest. Tell me how to shut down the Genesis collapse. Now. The regent smiled. You cannot shut it down. The process has already begun. In 45 minutes, the device will fire. Your planet will die. Your species will die. And even if you kill me, you cannot stop it. You're lying. I am not. The regent stepped closer, showing no concern for the weapon pointed at him. This is how it ends, Admiral. The Valeth may fall, but we will take humanity with us. You wanted justice? This is justice. You have destroyed our empire. We will destroy your home. Hana felt a cold knot in her stomach, but she did not let it show on her face. She had not come this far to fail. If you can't shut it down, then someone else can, she said. Where is the control center? The regent laughed. You will never find it in time. It is buried deep beneath this palace, and the path is sealed. You would need hours to break through, and you have minutes. Hana hit him across the face with her rifle. He fell to the ground, blood pouring from his mouth. She stood over him and spoke in a voice like ice. Then we'll do it in minutes. She called her engineers. They came with drilling equipment and explosives and started cutting through the floor. The regent watched from where he lay and laughed. You are wasting your time. You cannot. Hana shot him in the leg. He screamed. Every time you speak, she said, I shoot something else. Stay quiet. The engineers worked. Hana watched the time counting down on her display. 40 minutes. 30 minutes. 20 minutes. They broke through to a lower level. Then another. Then another. They found the control center with 8 minutes to spare. It was a vast chamber filled with alien technology, machines and screens and devices that Hana did not understand. At the center was the Genesis collapse device, a sphere of swirling energy contained in a metal frame. It was pulsing, building power, preparing to fire. How do we stop it? Hana demanded. Her chief engineer studied the controls. His face was pale. I don't know. This technology is beyond anything we've seen. If we make a mistake, it could fire immediately. 6 minutes. Hana thought about Earth. She thought about 4 billion people waiting to die. She thought about Admiral Park and his dream of humanity standing as equals in the galaxy. She had to save them. She had to. She looked at the device. She did not understand the technology, but she understood one thing. All machines needed power, and all power could be cut. Find the power source, she ordered. We don't need to understand it. We just need to shut it off. Her engineers spread out and searched. 5 minutes. 4 minutes. 3 minutes. Found it, one of them shouted. There's a fusion reactor feeding the device. Do it. They worked frantically, cutting cables and disconnecting systems. The device began to fluctuate, its pulse becoming erratic. 2 minutes. 1 minute. 30 seconds. The engineer pulled the last cable. The device shuddered and went dark. The swirling energy dissipated and vanished. The countdown stopped. Earth was saved. Hana fell to her knees. The strength went out of her legs, and she could not stand. Around her, her soldiers were cheering and crying and embracing each other. She felt hands on her shoulders, helping her up, but she barely noticed. She touched the metal at her neck. Park's metal. She had carried it through every battle, and now she had carried it to victory. We did it, sir, she whispered. We won. The war ended that day. The Valith Empire, which had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, fell in 3 months. The surviving Valith were confined to their homeworld and stripped of all military power. They would never threaten anyone again. The galactic hegemony was dissolved. In its place, humanity established the Terran Concord, a new government based on equality and justice for all species. The species that had joined humanity during the war became founding members. Those that had opposed them were given a choice: join as equals or go their own way. Most chose to join. Admiral Yoon Hana became the first human to lead the Galactic Defense Council. She was offered titles and honors, but she refused most of them. She said she was just a soldier doing her job. On Earth, a memorial was built for Admiral Park Do-hun and all who died in the war. It was a simple structure, a wall of black stone with names carved into it. There were millions of names. At the top was Park's name, and below it, a quote that he had loved. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. Hana visited the memorial on the first anniversary of the war's end. She stood before the wall and looked at the names. She found Commander Jang Hyuk's name and touched it gently. Thank you, she said. All of you. Thank you. She placed Park's medal at the base of the wall. It was time to let it go. He was home now, and so was she. That night, President Bake gave a speech to commemorate the anniversary. She spoke of sacrifice and courage and the cost of freedom. She spoke of the future that humanity would build now that the war was over. And she ended with words that would be remembered for centuries. They thought we were weak, she said. They thought we would break. They thought they could take our leader, and we would bow our heads and submit. They learned the truth. They learned that humanity does not forget. Humanity does not forgive. And humanity does not lose. She looked out at the billions watching. Let this be a lesson to anyone who threatens us in the future. We do not want war. We want peace and friendship and cooperation. But if you force us to fight, we will fight. And we will win. Always. The crowd erupted in cheers. Across human space and beyond, people celebrated the end of the war and the beginning of a new era. And somewhere, in the great darkness between stars, the galaxy remembered what humanity had done. It remembered, and it learned. Never again would anyone make the mistake of underestimating the wolves of Earth.